This is Kanzenshuu, the podcast, episode 322 for the week of January 27th, 2013. What's up, os? Welcome to Kanzenshuu,
the podcast.
The podcast, or an extension of the all-encompassing Dragon Ball fan site.
Kanzenshuu.
That's right, we cover anything and everything Dragon Ball in hopes of enlightening and a little bit of Shigeru Chiba inspired entertaining.
One of those days.
One of them days. My name is Mike Vegito EX. Joining me across the internet, Mr. Hujio. Heath, sir, what up, dude?
Thanks for having me. It's a
what was that? That wasn't even like a salute. That was like a tip of the hat kind of flailing your arm.
I have no idea. No one is supposed to see me, so.
What up, man?
Oh, you know, it's a splendid weekend here at the casa, and been doing a lot of cleaning, a lot of child playing, and a whole lot of nothing. So it's been
we did the cleaning. We watched cartoons. Does that count as playing with children?
Sure, why not? We're all children at heart.
We are. If you're covering Dragon
like
Ball, once you hit the age of 30, I guess you're a child at heart. So let's go with that.
But yesterday, you did a bunch of work. For once, I've spent almost an entire weekend doing nothing Dragon Ball related.
That's
which
fine.
Is really weird.
We got to do that every once in a while. Trade off the job. I actually didn't do a whole lot. Jake did all the real work, and that's
kinda how it usually is.
It is. So our topic this week is kind of a two-part topic, talking about content that's on the website / sorta on the website / a guide that will re-premiere maybe 2 years from now on the website, sorta kind of content related.
So this hasn't completely motivated you to just jump right in and get this guide done?
God, transformation guide? F no, man. I will revisit that in years. That is fine. It's not quite the 10th anniversary of it. Oh shit, yes it is. Yes it is.
Yeah, what up? So it has to get done.
Oh my God, I'd have to go back and see, when did we actually debut the transformation guide? I think it may have been in the relaunch year of 2003.
When you were highly motivated.
Man, when I was still in college and had free time. So what we're covering this episode is some translation work that Julian's done, finishing up all the Tenkaichi Densetsu translations, interviews, things. And we're going to talk a little bit about Super Saiyan Grade 5, which is super, super awesome fun. I did ask Jake, I was like, hey, are you actually still around to talk about this? Because that would be a great... It's like, nope, sorry, not available.
Yeah, unfortunately, where he is, it's not very conducive to recording.
Right. So I didn't tell him yet, but we're totally stealing his material to talk about it without him. So, So Jake, hey, you get to hear about what you wrote about. So that's what's on deck this episode, Heath. I would like to keep it a relatively concise episode. I got stuff to do. You got stuff to do. I have a busy week. So shall we talk about news?
We shall. All right, to begin, we have January 22nd. Toei Animation finally posted the very last section of the website, which was not yet live, which was the character page. And everyone's been waiting for this for a while, and we can see why, because there are some very nice profiles to all of the major characters that will be seen in the movie. We also had some voice actor confirmations. And I think some stuff we kind of wanted to take a little closer look at.
Yeah, at the same time, a lot of this material came from the promotional media packet that was sent out to places. So there was no new information there with regard to the characters, especially Uisu, which we keep talking about. We know nothing about this dude, but the profiles there for Birusu and Uisu, exactly the same. We had already translated that stuff. Let's see, that was back on December 19th. So you've already got that information there.
But we did have some confirmations as far as voice actors, which was really nice to see, because as far as we knew, we had Nozawa and, all of the main cast coming back. But we now know that a lot of the carryovers from Dragon Ball Kai will be staying. Unfortunately, we lost Gore Daisuke, so his replacement will be staying. Even though I do like him.
He's okay. I mean, Gori, come on.
It's not the same, but whatever. So, the biggest surprise to me was that Aya Hirano was sticking around as Dende.
Was that really a surprise too? I wasn't really surprised by it.
I kind of was, because as far as we had talked before, it was going to be more of a stunt cast sort of thing.
And she's had some BS going down with her and staying in the industry. She had that whole thing was just like, I don't even want to voice act anymore. She's like the Japanese Lindsay Lohan in some respects.
But I was pleasantly surprised to see that Eiko Yamada was actually coming back to reprise her role as Mai.
Yeah, that's very nice.
It's one of those things that when she came back for GT, a lot of people were kind of surprised. And now this is even farther down the road.
I know.
And she's done even less work since then. She's kind of fallen off the map, essentially retired. And here she is reprising this role that is not a huge major role by any means, but
no, but it's hers.
It's a staple character. And it's her character, and she's coming back. So yeah. I'm really happy to see that.
You know, speaking of surprises, this was kind of not a surprise because she sort of spoiled it on her own blog without actually talking about it. And that's Yuko Minaguchi. One of the 2 projects she came back to Japan to record for seems to have been Battle of Gods. And we're assuming the other one was probably Dragon Ball Kai. She is confirmed to come back as Videl for this movie. So we're excited about that.
Woohoo! And other than that, yeah, everything else we pretty much expected.
The expected
and like
stuff.
You said, it was all recycled material that we've seen in the pamphlet before. We've translated a lot of it. And for anyone wondering, the character profiles themselves really don't say a whole lot. Like I think, for instance, was it Trunks he's a half Saiyan, half Earthling.
Right.
He has the fighting skills of his father and the brains of his mother. And
Krillin is the strongest human.
Yep. And that's all they are. They're very generic.
Yeah.
Any fan could make these up, and that's essentially why we didn't translate all of them.
If you had to write a profile in 2 sentences, you would probably come up with something very similar.
Yep.
All right, we're basically done there. I mean, we got some character art. We got some nice, transparent pings of characters and stuff. So
which is nice. Things that we never used to get with older releases. And now everything's all updated, and they throw it up and they're like, here, it's a lossless ping with transparent background. Thank you.
I know, they never used to do that. I'm so appreciative. I mean, remember all the Sparking Meteor character profiles? People had to cut them out and kind of redraw the rest of their feet and stuff. Nowadays, it's all pings. It's all transparent.
And my favorite is the fact that they're starting to actually switch over to using more of a JavaScript instead of Flash.
It's not all Flash-based.
It does not just zap your computer.
Julie and I were talking about that the other day. It's like, even just 4 or 5 years ago, everything was still Flash-based and you couldn't even navigate to stuff. Everything's better. Everything. All right, we're done there, right?
I think so.
Kind of recycled stuff. All right.
Moving on.
Here's some maybe interesting stuff. It's kind of geared more toward people who are not regular manga fans, and particularly Dragon Ball fans. That's Free Comic Book Day, which is going to take place on May 4th. Viz is putting something out this year. It's his dual Dragon Ball and Rurouni Kenshin kind of sampler thing. We don't actually know which chapters or kind of introductions it's going to have. It is the original Dragon Ball, so I'm assuming it's going to be probably chapter 1. And as for Kenshin,
it's the longest and best chapter.
Yes, so that's probably an accurate guess. Kenshin, Rurouni Kenshin Restoration, which I'm pretty sure is just their equivalent of the Kanzenban, like Viz Big version of Kenshin.
I believe so.
I don't think it's, I mean, I know they did the extra Yahiko stuff and the extra chapters with Kenji and all that stuff, but I don't think that's what Restoration is. Kind of weird that as big of a Kenshin fan that I was, I'm not entirely, I mean, I bought all of the graphic novels. I kind of own it. So I'm like, all right, I'm done. But anyway, Free Comic Book Day. I'm pretty sure it's North America only. I don't actually know the ins and outs of Free Comic Book Day, but if you head down to your local comic book store, usually the more independent comic book stores that actually focus on comic books, you can grab a whole bunch of free stuff, and Dragon Ball Kenshin One Little Book will be waiting for you there. So I guess go check it out.
And then you can buy the rest.
Yes, while you're there, go buy the rest. All right, Heath, keep us going. We got CD. We were just talking last episode, you and I, about how all this stuff is coming soon. We don't have cover art for things. If it's a CD, we don't have a track listing. If it's a book, we don't have cover art. We're starting to get all this stuff.
Which is funny because I went to Amazon looking for the new cover art for the new books that are coming out.
Yes.
And this just happened to pop up. And I was like, oh.
And that stuff's still not there.
And then I went and it's like, oh, there's a track listing. Oh, this is nice. And then I started to think a little, So this is like due out in a month, but the stuff that's due out in a week, we don't have anything for.
I know.
So
Awesome.
What have you. But anyway, originally this was titled Dragon Ball Z Best Song Collection. It was a tentative title.
That's a title they've used so many times.
Yeah, so we knew something was coming. Well, now the official title is actually Dragon Ball Z 20th Century Songs Best, which are all of the songs best from... Okay, which are all of the best songs from the 20th century, and essentially what they advertised it as originally, which was just going to be 16 to 17 tracks of your favorite songs from Dragon Ball Z, such as movies, insert songs, opening and ending themes, and the like, which is what this is. It's due out...
February 27th, man.
This is due out February 27th for 2,310 yen with a catalog number of COCX37869 for those of you that care about those things. But I was really pleasantly surprised by the track list, although it's nothing we haven't seen before, stuff that's available on almost all of the albums out there.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. We're supposed to have quasi-remastered, remixed, and by remix, I don't mean thumpa thunka whoop whoop. I mean kind of go back to the original tracks, a la the 2006 Best One Half special. We think.
Like
we don't
restoration?
know. We don't really know yet. So we think that's what's coming. But yeah, tell me about the track list. It's the openings and endings to the TV series, 2 and 2. And then we've got some of the insert songs. We've got like Mind Power, and we've got Unmei no Hi. And we've actually got Hikari no Tabi from the Bardock special. Do we have Hope on here? Yep, we do. So we got the two major TV specials.
I just thought it was funny that they go from 2 to 9 for the movies.
Yeah, that's the thing.
They don't do any of the later movies, and they leave out 1 and 4.
Well, it ended with Zenkai Power.
Right.
So, then you get the movie insert songs, but they don't always toss those on here. So what do you think? Is it a pretty good selection? Those later movie songs aren't very often tossed onto compilations. And I don't know if that has to do with Hironobu Kageyama and some of his rights, because he did include those on some of his personal albums at the time in the mid to late 90s. So I wonder if that comes into play, but
that very well could.
Overall, it's a pretty solid selection.
I like it. If it's someone that has never really bought a lot of Dragon Ball Z albums, I think this would be a good one to get.
Oh yeah, it's a great starting point. Totally. So
now, one thing I did find interesting was when they first promoted this album, they did say 16 to 17 tracks.
And we got 15.
So it does make me wonder what happened to the other 1 or 2.
Well, maybe they just filled up the... part of it is Hikari no Tabi has that like 2 minutes slow build-up opening, which I'm pretty sure they cut down on the 2006 special One Half Best Remastered Remixed Recording album. So, I mean, depending a little bit of that, you can save some space, because, I mean, we think about data, but if it's a regular CD release, you're still kind of stuck to that, what is it, 70 minutes limit on a CD?
Yeah. Essentially. But the one song I was really happy to see on here, because I will listen to this song whenever it's put on an album, period, is the Day of Destiny, the Gohan transformation Super Saiyan Grade 5 song.
Ties in perfectly. I like that.
Boom!
Teasing the later material. All right, so we got that coming. I've already got mine on order, so, we'll check it out when it comes in and let you know what's up with it. So the next bit of news here, the full promo video for Dragon Ball Heroes Ultimate Mission on the Nintendo 3DS that was put up by Namco Bandai. Not a whole lot we didn't already know. In fact, I don't know that there's anything we didn't already know in this trailer. Maybe we can talk about this. One of our forum members, very, very keen eye, as I said on Facebook, noticed that the promo, well, we all noticed that the promo showed Birusu and Uisu, but Uisu had a named attack that flew by super, super fast in the trailer. But we were able to grab a look at it. Uisu's attack is Hakai no Joukyoku, or Prelude to Destruction. So I guess this kind of ties into Battle of Gods stuff, but a lot of people have been theorizing, all right, if Birusu is the god of destruction, is Uisu the god of creation? To kind of play off of that idea. And I think you and I are both kind of like, nah, he's going to be a Makaioshin. We're like, come on, we're really hoping that. So knowing that Uisu has this attack called Prelude to Destruction seems to be kind of evil intent. So knowing that the rest of this Heroes promo video is everything we already knew about the game, shows some of the opening animation and some of the,
which is
the cards, the galaxy missions. Let's take what we can, focus on Battle of Gods here. Is there anything you want to take away from this one little tiny tidbit of information about Uisu?
It really gets my hopes up that my guess for what's going to happen in the movie is more and more likely now.
You think?
I think someone is pulling the strings, and I think I don't. Spoiler alert! No,
what can you spoil? It's
completely in my head. But Bilusu, I think, is just being strung along, and eventually Goku and him kind of like put two and two together and realize, hey, I'm being used. What's going on? And then everything flips.
I don't know if it's gonna.
Kind of what I'm going with.
I don't know.
But then I'm torn on that too because I think there's more to it than that, and I don't know.
Wow, you're really giving the writers some credit in your head here.
I know, but in my head, then I'm going, I've seen Dragon Ball movies before. This is
never
nothing
goes this
like
way.
that.
No. I don't think it's going to be quite that level. I think he's happy, Bilusu, to play along here and, destroy, but I do think Uisu has some ulterior motives at the very least.
I do too. For the most part.
So now that we turned Ultimate Mission into a total discussion on Battle of Gods, I mean, go watch it.
Happen.
It's nothing we didn't already know. I guess let's stick with Battle of Gods. You want to tell me about some cards?
Miracle Battle Card-ass series is getting a new update. This is actually Dragon Ball Kai marketed.
Yeah, they're still keeping it.
That's what I thought, which is kind of weird, but whatever.
It's one of the only things.
So it's coming out with a Miracle of God booster pack, which will bring the Battle of Gods into this ongoing card game. That comes out sometime this April 12th, it looks like.
Now, Heath, we had all of 2 people comment how amazing our performances were last episode.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to ask you, can you play the role of excited promotional manager here? And
I don't know. That's a
and
challenge.
Give us this amazing quote from the marketing.
All right. Let me put my acting hat on.
Okay.
Appearing for the first time in the movie opening March 30th, new characters join the battle at top speed. Characters that also have a role to play in the movie appear as Boost Kira. Limited edition campaign card included.
Unless you know what you're doing with card ass, that means nothing to me. It's just gibberish.
Nope. Yeah, complete gibberish.
It's one of those things. I think it's like number 12, whatever that happens to mean in this series. But yeah, the new booster packs are coming. There's going to be 77 cards in total. They've got super omega cards and limited edition cards and common and super rare and super omega rare.
I totally want these.
If you're 7 years old, that sounds awesome. Like, I want the super omega rare card, Mom. I have to buy them all.
I have to have them all.
Yeah, so card ass, it's got Battle of God stuff coming.
I always forget that Miracle Battle Card ass is even around.
It's a thing. I know, because Heroes kind of took over for Dragon Ball in terms of cards, because it can tie into a game as well, instead of just, a video game.
Well, and then, I mean, before we had all the Dragon Battlers cards.
Yeah.
That were coming out. And a lot of times, the only times I get cards is when I buy some new merchandise and it comes with a card. I'm like, oh.
I was telling Julian, I've got so many Dragon Ball Heroes cards that I can't do anything with. I got a giant pile of them just from ordering crap from Japan.
We should just compile them all together and ship them off to him.
I probably have a pretty good deck at this point. I don't know.
Like, here you go, Julian. Have fun.
Knock yourself out, man.
Go play.
All right. That's pretty much it for news at this point, right? Like, that's a slow week for us.
Which is surprising.
And I appreciate it.
But I'll take it. Just wait next 3 weeks.
No. No.
I can wait.
All right.
So anyway,
content?
On to the topic.
All right, Heath, you kind of did the grunt work that Julian did the grunt work from, and we got up the rest of the voice actor translations from their interviews in Tenkaichi Densetsu, that was one of the anime guidebooks.
Correct. It was the Dragon Ball TV anime guide that was released in 2004.
Yeah, I'm clicking through to make sure we say the right year, July 7th, 2004, for 1,300 yen. Getting it right this time.
Woo.
2004, my God, this book is almost 10 years old. God damn it.
Which is weird because when
this is the new book to me.
I know. When I first got this book, you thumb through it right away. That's the first thing you do.
Yeah.
You go, what is in this thing?
Right.
Ooh, look at all the pretty pictures.
What don't I recognize from the Kanzenshuu?
Yes. So for the longest time, it's like, initially we knew these were in there, all these interviews, but no one ever did anything with them. They were just there. And over the years, I essentially forgot about them until they were brought up in discussion. We started putting the actual content page together for Tenkaichi Densetsu. I was like, oh yeah, these are in here. And you start flipping through them, you're like, God damn, there are so many freaking interviews in this book. I think by far this book has more interviews in it, just per page count than any other book I own.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
Right, and it's got not just the voice actor stuff, but it's got some of the roundtable things, right?
Well, yeah, it's got the big cross discussion with Toriyama, Takao Koyama, and Nozawa together.
Which is great. I know we talked about that one before. So what we're really doing now is kind of just a mini follow-up to that. Now that we've had a chance to post the rest of these, you and I are just going to pull out, a couple things, couple trends. What do we notice here? What's really fun about these interviews? And, after that, we'll talk about grade 5, which will be fun. But kind of one of the biggest trends I saw in all of these, and this is what you would expect me to talk about, but I have to talk about it because they all talk about it, is that every single voice actor defers to Nozawa as the master of the trade.
They love her, essentially.
There's so many quotes about Takashi Kusao, who played Trunks, talking about how he did Gotenks, where he wanted to try and follow her, but she would just match whatever he was doing, so he felt really comfortable doing it. And Yuko Minaguchi, who played Videl, but she also did Pawn, when she had a couple scenes that she had to talk to herself there, people were kind of jabbing at her like, oh, right, it's your turn to do this, just like Nozawa. And she's like, oh god, I don't know if I'm capable of doing this. So lots of stories like that where they all said they would make Nozawa would make everyone feel really comfortable and just be the most professional about it. And so for those of you playing along with the unannounced, unofficial Kanzenshuu drinking game, you can take a couple now for Mike talking about other folks' undying love for Nozawa.
I guess one thing that I really pulled out, and this goes with your Nozawa take, is in Toru Furuya, his interview, he actually said that Nozawa was not only such a great veteran, but anyone that was new that would come into the fold, she would kind of just take them under her wing, help them, and she'd do whatever she could to cater to their needs, to help them open up and relax, as he put it, which is just really nice to see. And also Furuya would go through and talk about how, even though they're all veterans, they would take on what he dubbed kitchen sink roles.
Yeah.
And they would just fill in, and you see it in the credits all the time. And a lot of it's not even credited at all. Like, he talks about the Saibai men and how Furukawa, who played Piccolo, and Suzuoki, who did Tenshinhan, and himself took on the roles of all the Saibai men.
Right.
And that's something that I had never even known. As far as we knew, they were just random people that they had make the noises. But it's whoever was recording that day, they just said, hey, you guys are all going to be Saibai men. Here we go.
Right.
And boom, they just do it.
Yeah, we actually...
And that's really cool.
Minaguchi might have actually had one in there as well where she talked about... don't quote me on that, but someone talked about a role that... No, I wasn't even credited for this, but this is one I did. I'm like, oh, great, we have a confirmation on who played that little side minor character now.
And, I can't even pull out all the stuff through here, but there's a lot of things like that are just littered everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
While we're talking about Furuya, of course, the amazing voice actor for Yamcha, I want to pull this out. There's a couple things where people are talking about how they got into character and how they would play them, how they would know what role to play, especially him. He has done some of the biggest roles in anime history. So I just want to read a little bit of how he talked about getting into the role and playing Yamcha. He said, for example, if it was my Amuro Ray from Mobile Suit Gundam, I get into Namuro way of speaking by doing some of his unique lines. So even now, before I perform, by saying one of Amuro's signature lines like, you hit me, I immediately get back into that character's feel. With Saint Seiya, when I feel burn up my cosmos, I become Seiya. But Yamcha doesn't have any signature lines, so I'd be very unsure of myself. Well, it's probably just me who thinks that. It wasn't much of a problem in practice. I love that, because he goes on to talk about how excited he was when the Sokidan showed up, but then he's still lost and Yamcha just gets thrown by the wayside. Like, he kept getting really excited about these random developments Yamcha would have, and especially when Trunks came on the scene, it's just like, well, all right then.
Who was that? Was that Norio Wakamoto? Somebody was talking about how, Suzuoki, who also did the Tenkaichi Budokai announcer.
I actually have that quote here.
Yeah, where he's talking about how I started to use this voice and I didn't think he'd be around that long. But then as it turns out, he's around a lot. And I really hated myself for using that voice because it hurt.
That was actually the single other quote I pulled out to talk about. Yeah, he did it in this falsetto voice. He was like, oh, I can't believe I did this. He said, it was nothing but high energy lines and falsettos, so it was really exhausting. I really made a mistake with that.
Yeah. It's just funny that all these years later, that's what he remembers about doing that character.
Yeah, that was the Afterlife tournament announcer in particular.
Yeah. And then I guess Norio Wakamoto, while I brought him up, I might as well go with it. One of my favorite parts from his interview was the fact that when he first saw Cell, he was really confused.
Yep. And
he had no idea what this creature was going to be. And then I'm guessing, saw a lot of the lines and was like, oh my God, he talks like a normal person. So then he took this unnatural performance to his voice in order to do it. And so he started using this raspy voice, and he said that even hurt.
Right.
And so he wasn't able to perform the character comfortably. And that was something that kind of ties into Dragon Ball Kai a little, because a lot of people noted the change in his performance
is very different.
Of that character. So
yeah, first form selling Kai, he talks like this, and then brings it back down a little bit.
And so I think a lot of that ties in, and he even admits here in 2004 that, that was not comfortable. And so when he
the thing is, he says he does it better now.
Form. Yeah.
He thinks it's better now. I'm like, no, you are wrong. You did it better back then, even if it hurt.
And so that's why when he got to the perfect form, he purposely changed it, because the character now looks less monstrous.
Right.
So he decided he could do it in a more comfortable manner.
Yeah.
And it's just the weird things like that you don't really think about as a fan sometimes is, oh, that's why he changed his voice. And unfortunately, and you get instances like Suzuoki, who the character never changes, never transforms. So you essentially have to use the same voice all the time.
There were a couple people, I think it was Suzuoki and Minaguchi, that both said that family members and such would ask them to do the voice in person, and their nephews and cousins and stuff would be like,
yeah,
it doesn't sound like that character. Like, well, wait, but it's totally me. What do you mean? I love that
because
part.
They theorized in the interview that it's because they associate a voice with seeing the picture of the character, but instead they see their ugly mug doing this voice. It just doesn't compute.
That's great, though. I love the idea of family members kind of being in the mix there.
Oh, I can't even remember, because there's 12 interviews here that I read through, but somebody noted that they told like their niece or nephew, someone, that they got cast in this role. They're like, no way. They didn't believe them.
Right. That might have been Suzuoki.
That could be.
Yeah. The late and great Hirotaka Suzuoki at this point. I mean, that's another thing, is you're reading a couple of these. Suzuoki has passed away.
Takeshi Aono.
Yeah. Played Piccolo Daimao and God. And so it's nice to reflect and see what their thoughts were, 9 years ago at this point, reflecting back still 9-10 years on some of those roles. It's great to have that to look back on.
But there are some gems in there, so
please read them.
I highly suggest people go read them.
Yes. All right, so we're done. Let's transition into our second mini topic of this episode. Now, the reason this came about, I'm pretty sure, is because Saiga on our forum recently started up a discussion thread. Hey, so the way the series goes, Gohan transforms against Cell. We, of course, know this as Super Saiyan 2 nowadays, because it's 2013 and we've had all these years to reflect on it. But if you go back to the series, that stage is not given a name until chapter 474. That's when Goku is kind of up there in the sky with Boo and Babidi, and he's like, hey, this is Super Saiyan. This is the level beyond Super Saiyan. I guess you could call it Super Saiyan 2. Soshite. And then he goes into Super Saiyan 3 transformation. That's the first time we get we get the name for Super Saiyan 2 when we get Super Saiyan 3. It's never named up until that point. It's just a thing that's been done. So Saiga's question was, hey, there's actually some time in between then. What did Japanese people call that stage? And I'm sure Jake read that and said, I am not sleeping until I get to the bottom of this, because I want to know the answer to this. So that's what he did. He sent me a text one day and he's like, hey, do you have the film anime comics of the Trunks TV special? And I was already passed out on the couch at that point, so I didn't get back to him until the next day. I'm like at work already going, nah, I don't own it. Sorry, check back later. I get home, I look at my shelf, I'm going, oh, I actually do own this book. I'm pretty sure that I picked it up. I think that was when you and Corey were here and we all did that trip up to New York and went to book off. I think I grabbed it then, which it's a relatively more recent acquisition of mine, which is why I don't remember purchasing it. But so I did have it. I'm like, yeah, back in this book actually does showcase all the different forms of Super Saiyan, and Super Saiyan 3 had not debuted at that point. So here's the interesting thing. You have the back history here. At the point this book came out, and these film anime comics, we've talked about these are animanga. They're screenshots from the animated adaptation with word balloons put into a manga. It's the adaptation of the original, with the redundantly redundant animanga, as Julian says.
And they were released out of order.
They were released completely out of order. It was fun times. This one, for the Trunks TV special, came out May 31st, 1993. So to put this in a time span perspective, that week was manga chapter 422. Now remember, Goku didn't talk about this stuff to Boo until 474. Chapter 422 is when Gohan's in high school, he's meeting Videl and all that stuff. And then over in the TV series, Gohan had only just transformed 2 weeks earlier against Cell. So this was completely fresh, basically hot off the presses, new information. So you've got this book. Remember, there's no Kanzenshuu, there's no, I mean, we had the Boken special back in, what was that,
88, 87, 88, somewhere in there.
So there's not anything really for guidebooks for this whole part of the series. So the back of this book starts detailing, yes, this is Super Saiyan. Yes, this is Super Saiyan Grade 2, Super Saiyan Grade 3, the Nidankai, Sandankai stages, which are the bulkier forms that Vegeta uses and then Trunks uses. Goku actually shows them off in the Room of Spirit and Time as well. He's like, these have, pitfalls to them. These are not the way to go about it. What we need to do is make the regular Super Saiyan form the best that it can become fully natural in it. So the book here also talks about that full power Super Saiyan stage where they bring out the complete full power of regular Super Saiyan, but it also addresses Gohan here. So we have Super Saiyan, we have Grade 2, we have Grade 3. What we now call full power Super Saiyan was called Super Saiyan Grade 4, and then Gohan against Cell with the one strand coming down, what we now call Super Saiyan 2, at that point in time in 1993 was called Super Saiyan Grade 5. And in parentheses, it's like the strongest form of Super Saiyan.
I know, that's my favorite part.
In case you couldn't tell, because 5 is better than 3 and better than 4.
It cannot get stronger than this.
Right.
Until 50 chapters.
A little bit from there. What do you think about this? It's a great question. I mean, it's tough because we are in 2013. We know too much.
See, and that's the whole thing. It really comes down to perspective, because in the US and where we are, the series has been over what seems like forever. We have the Kanzenshuu, we have all this other information. We have, fortunately, new information that's coming out, which none of us ever really expected.
And it's all detailed immediately online by us the day it premieres.
Yeah, which back in that day, we didn't have the internet. Nothing was set up the way it is these days. Nothing pops up on the internet almost instantly. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have instant communication, instant gratification. This was stuff you had to live in Japan, you had to buy it, and that's something that a lot of people we even can't relate to that as much anymore.
Here's the interesting thing is that this didn't really carry over into later guidebooks. Its history was completely overwritten by Goku's little statement in the manga there by saying, I guess you could call it Super Saiyan 2.
Which I wouldn't even say is entirely unfortunate, but...
No, it makes total sense.
It's kind of one of those things where you'd like to see it documented at least somewhere just for historical value more than anything of this is what it was called, because we didn't have a title for it. But then it makes you wonder in your head what they were thinking before even Toriyama came up with Super Saiyan 3. If they would have kept having more and more transformations, would they just keep going with all these grade values?
Right. Would they?
Is that what we would have?
Would they all be subset transformations within the larger regular Super Saiyan? Because at this point, I mean, if you look at the series chronologically, not knowing anything, I don't know that you would start assigning numbers to things like we do, where this is 2. Why would you do that? Because it's just Gohan did something. It's just his full power. It's complete potential. It's Gohan at his maximum. Why would you call that Super Saiyan 2? I don't know that you would. So this kind of makes sense from that perspective.
And then it also throws in the pitfall now that Super Saiyan 2 and Super Saiyan 3 are 2 completely separate transformations.
Right, very distinct.
No sub-transformations, yet Super Saiyan now has multiple grades.
Within
we have what fans have termed this Ultimate Super Saiyan, almost to delineate it off from a Super Saiyan transformation so that everything does now fit nicely, where you have Super Saiyan, USSJ, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, and so on. And that's where I think creating a Super Saiyan 2, but at the same point, you think back, and it makes total sense why they kept going in this fashion, because why would you all of a sudden distinguish this one transformation from all the others when essentially it is Super Saiyan?
Right. And the thing is, Gohan's also a half-breed here, so maybe it's his version of the Saiyan transformation at its fullest power. It's completely different because it's Gohan, not because it's a new Super Saiyan stage. It's just Gohan is that powerful.
And we see leading up to this that no other character has really attained this. I think there is the anime-only scene of Goku kind of obtaining it.
Kind of pull it out.
Or is it? No, it's Gohan.
Gohan does it. They're in the room of spirit and time. Goku's like, oh, he almost had it. He was right there.
He got like a glimpse of it.
Yeah.
And so I guess at that point, you're the staff coming up with all this stuff. You don't know where Toriyama's going with it at the time. Nothing becomes clear until almost a year from that point.
Yeah.
So
it's just such a great time capsule to go back to. And speaking of time capsules, we ran into a lot of this online. People are like, I know what it was called. It was called, I'm going to call it the A word. Guys, 1993, Funimation did not yet exist as a company for another full year at this point. Whatever things are called in their version of the show has no relevance to this discussion. That's all I'm going to say.
At all.
So I love time capsules. I'm glad that we could go back in time here and check this out and be like, oh, that's what people would have called what Gohan did at that point in time. That's really neat. And of course, it's overwritten now. That's Super Saiyan 2, because then other characters did it, Goku and Vegeta. So it is what it is.
But then you also ask yourself, well, I wonder who in Japan actually walked around using all these really drawn out terms. But who knows? I mean, Super Saiyajin Daigo Dankai. Yeah, everyone's going to use that all over the place.
I don't know. Maybe they did. I mean,
I don't know.
Whatever.
That also may be part of the reason they decided, hey, let's just use Super Saiyan and just start throwing numbers on behind.
Yep.
Because that's a lot easier to say.
So you checked out, I'm sure by now, the little abbreviated version I did on the homepage. Jake did a full translation of this entire section from the Trunks TV special film anime comics. It's got more stuff about Broly, about some of the extra transformations, stuff we haven't even gotten into here. So you can check that out. And of course, we will document this stuff when the transformation guide, one of, I know, a lot of folks' favorite sections from Kanzenshuu EX. That thing was one of the first guides that Julian and I threw ourselves into after the 2003 relaunch. Remember we were talking about Tenkaichi Densetsu earlier? That was 2004. We did the transformation guide before the next round of guidebooks had even come out. So there is so much more information and documentation to throw in there. We want to give it the attention it deserves. Right now we're working on other stuff. We will get back to it. There will be a transformation guide revival, EX plus alpha on Kanzenshuu. Let's say in 2 years.
Okay.
That
fair. Seems like a nice timetable.
Yep. All right, dude. This actually is sort of turning into a normal length episode, so let's call it quits while we're sort of ahead right now.
We are ahead, which is good, because we haven't quite hit the 45-minute mark yet.
We're almost there, And I want to go play some video games and stuff before I have to go back to work tomorrow. So let's just no more teases about content. There's plenty of things coming, plenty more interviews. Heath, tell the kids, Kanzenshuu, where is it?
You can find us on the interwebs at www.kanzenshuu.com. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. You can find us on Google+. And then you can also join us, our grand community, our forum, our hopefully soon-to-come wiki, and just have a good time with us. You can find out all sorts of really fun things like what we just talked about.
Right, because what Jake does is he posts giant threads 5 years before they become sections on the website. That is our, what is the term, modus operandi?
Yes.
That's what we do. All right, dude, Kanzenshuu.com. Your name is Heath. Your name is Hugio. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
My name is Mike. My name is biting my lip as I'm talking.
That is your name. That's your new name.
Vegito-EX. This was episode 322 of our podcast here at Kanzenshuu. Coming back at you strong in February as we head toward that March 30th release date of Battle of Gods. We have officially hit that 45-minute mark, so I am done.
I'm going to lose all my hair in March. I swear.
Don't you mean the rest of it?
Oh, that's true.
It's okay. I'm heading that way too. It's totally starting to thin out, recede. Yep.
But that's a topic for a different
It's different podcast. Kanzenshuu.com. Later, folks. We'll check you back next week.